Hi everyone, hope everybody is well. I am coming back with a kind of follow-up video from the one I did over a year ago on my chronic pain and possible endometriosis, as I have now had the laparoscopy, I've had results and I'm now in recovery, so I thought it'd be a good time to kind of jump on the camera, update everybody, and if someone is going through a similar process, they can also watch this and kind of get an understanding of what happens. I'll put a trigger warning out there before we start, just to kind of say if you don't like things like needles, hospitals, talking of gynecological procedures, things like that, then you might not want to watch this video. And also, I am not a medical professional, so take everything I say with a pinch of salt because it might not be correct. And this is just my experience, my personal experience, and everybody's will be different. So I had a phone call about, I don't know, five, 6 weeks ago now, to let me know that a space had come available on the list for a laparoscopy. Bearing in mind, I got put on it, I think February last year, so February 2022. So it'd been over a year, which I was kind of expecting with the NHS at the moment anyway. So when I got the call, I was pretty happy, and it felt a good time for me socially and work-wise and everything that I had going on. So it kind of fit in. And they asked me if I still wanted it done, and I ummed and ahed at first because the chronic pain had actually died down a lot and I wasn't suffering quite as much. But I thought if I ever have any problems in the future, I will always regret not getting it and not finding out what possibly could be wrong. So I said yes, and then the process started. I had a pre-op phone call with someone from Basildon Hospital, which was really easy, straightforward. I had to go in for some pre-op bloods, which were a lot more in depth than I thought they were going to be. So just a warning, if you have to have them, this might not be for everybody, but I had to have 3 vials of blood, like the little tubes, taken out of one arm, which was a struggle because my blood doesn't come out easily. So that made me quite faint. And then I had to go and wait out in the waiting room for 10-15 minutes, go back in, then they had to go in the other arm and get like another vial of blood. So if you're not great with blood tests, maybe just be prepared that they take a little bit more than normal. But like I said, that might not be the same for everybody. So you can always check that at your pre-op phone call. And then I literally went into hospital a few days later. So 11th of April 2022 was when I went in for the operation. You go in at 8 o'clock in the morning to the outpatients, and you have to go in on your own, which is scary. I was hoping I might have been able to have somebody with me for some of it, but no, you have to go in on your own, which was fine in the end. But you basically just go into a waiting room. You're with lots of different people, different genders, different ages, different procedures, because it's just a general outpatient like clinic. And I managed to keep myself super calm somehow. I don't know how. But anyway, when I got there, they sit you down and then I first saw the anaesthetist, who kind of assess you to make sure that you're okay to go under. Now, I'd had a bit of a cold the week before, and they weren't super happy, but I was happy in myself that I'd be able to go under and be okay. And I wanted it doing, so I didn't want to wait any longer. So they were happy and said, okay. So I went and sat back down in the waiting room. Then you get taken into another room with the surgeon. Again, this might be different for different people. And she sat down with me and went through all the procedure again, checked what I was having done. I was originally going to have the coil fitted while under, but I decided not to because the microgynon pill works for me fine. So I don't think there's any point messing with the pill and the coil if I don't need to. So decided not to go ahead with that. So you go through all that, check it, tick it all off, and then get it signed. And she eased me greatly. She's a great surgeon that I ended up going with. So yeah, that was amazing. And then I went and sat back down again, feeling all good at this point. Everybody was super nice in the waiting room as well. And then I saw the nurse last, who does your blood pressure, checks you've not got any piercings, nail varnish on, things like that. Makes you go and wee in a cup. So then you have to be checked, just to obviously check you're not pregnant. And then it was kind of a waiting game, really. My surgeon actually told me that I was probably going to be second on the list of the day, which was amazing because you can't eat or drink anything on the day, like for 20, kind of, I think it was about 12 hours before. So you're super hungry, super thirsty, and you just want to get it done. So then someone came down to get me around, I think it was about 11 o'clock. So then they literally gowned me up, put the sexy socks on, compression socks, and then you literally lie on the bed and off you go, and it's as quick as that. I then went straight into the room where they were doing the surgery because they were trying to get it done as quick as possible, I think. Went in there, was surrounded by just 2 nurses and the anaesthetist, which was fine. I've never been under before, I've never had a cannula in my hands, so at this point I was starting to get super nervous and thought, oh my god, this is about to happen. But they all made me feel really calm. They put the kind of heart monitor stickers on, and anaesthetist then talked me through kind of what he was going to do, and the cannula went in absolutely fine. I don't have great veins, you can barely even see them, so I was really worried about that, but he literally made it completely pain-free, and it was absolutely fine. And then it kind of just talked me through what would happen. My surgeon came in, kind of made herself known, just double checked again what we was doing, and they just run through each time you go on something, you have a band, and they check your name and date of birth to check they've got the right person. And then it was time, and they put like a little bit of the anaesthetic in, and I felt it take over my whole entire body, which was the strangest feeling ever. And I could feel it took over kind of my breathing, and they asked me if I was okay, and I was like, yeah, it feels a bit weird, but fine. And then next minute, the rest of it was in and I was gone. Woke up in the recovery room with a nurse right next to me, kind of saying, you're coming round now, like, if there's anything you need, let us know. Just felt really groggy, my throat was quite sore, I was coughing quite a bit, and then I felt the pain in my stomach, and they sat me up, and I felt in quite a lot of pain, and I just started crying for no reason at all, which is apparently what anaesthetic does to you. But yeah, so it was a bit of a weird one when I came round, and I just wanted to tell my mum that I'd come out and I was okay, because I'd actually never got a chance to tell anyone that I'd gone down to surgery. So they were really nice, and they gave me a phone that I could ring someone off. So that was all good, but then I realised I was in quite a lot of pain, and I asked them if they'd given me any pain relief, and they said yes, but did I want more? And I asked for a little bit more just because I was in quite a lot of pain. And they gave me fentanyl, which is a pretty strong drug. It's stronger than morphine. So they put that straight into my cannula, and I felt it literally take over my whole entire body. And I felt like I was in another land. So it was very strange, but they were happy with kind of how my blood pressure was doing, my heart. They kind of take it I think it was every 5 to 10 minutes. And I was in there for about half an hour, and then they wheeled me back to the ward. I was also on a drip the whole time. And then, the nurse on the ward kind of comes round and asks if you want some tea and toast, classic hospital food. Which I said yes, but then as they brought it out, I suddenly had this wave of feeling extremely unwell. And she said to me I'd lost all the colour in my face, I'd gone completely white. So she took my blood pressure and it had dropped pretty low, which is worrying when you've had something like fentanyl. So they then had to just monitor and watch me for about an hour, and in that hour I did not feel well at all, which wasn't great, but I got through the hour, and then I had a bit of something to eat and drink, came round a little bit. And then they tried to get me up and out of bed to go home. They try and get you out as quick as possible, but I stood up and felt extremely unwell again, like really sick, dizzy, faint, not well. So they put me back in the bed for another hour. So I actually ended up being in hospital probably a lot longer than what some people may be after a laparoscopy. They ended up going in 2 places. So on the left-hand side and through my belly button. And the incisions are tiny, they're still healing, but they're so small, and they just put plasters over them anyway. And they're constantly checking just to make sure that they look okay while you're in hospital. But they actually ended up finding endometriosis, so that's kind of my outcome. They did find it, but only a little bit, a minor bit on the left-hand side of my pelvis, which they burnt away, which is good news. And I was obviously worried about my fertility, and I asked and they said it shouldn't affect it. So that's a big thumbs up from me. It's something that maybe I don't need to worry about quite as much now. So yeah, I got to go home after an hour of just kind of resting, and I was pretty much sofa bed bound for about 2-3 days, just while the kind of pain was wearing off. I had cocodamol that they gave me from the hospital. I just took paracetamol. A lot of people say they get a lot of pain in their shoulder from the gas where they bloat your stomach up. I got a little bit of it as soon as I came out, but I actually didn't suffer that badly afterwards. I drank lots of peppermint tea. That's the key. Peppermint sweets, peppermint tea, and I think that definitely helped. And just to try and move around as much as you can. Try not to lie down all day. I think that I tried to get up and walk around the flat as much as I could. This is just afterthought Emma coming in here. Something about the recovery that I completely forgot to say about is you actually bleed quite heavily after the operation, which no one actually told me. When you come out of the op, you actually have a massive pad that they've put on, and they're checking that constantly in the hospital to check that you're not bleeding out or bleeding too heavily, because hemorrhaging is something that can possibly be something that can happen after. So just a warning, but I would advise taking pads in with you to wear home, and then obviously have lots in stock at home because you do bleed quite heavily for about a week after. So yeah, just a reminder to throw in there. I do think I went back to work a few days early. I'd say give yourself a good week off. I was super tired and groggy and just didn't feel well, and I actually ended up with a chest infection. So all in all, I was quite unwell, I was coughing a lot. So I'd advise taking a good week off, but it's definitely a 2-week recovery. I would say after 2 weeks, I felt pretty good. And about 3 weeks, I've started back at the gym and feeling, yeah, really good. The scars are kind of, you take the plasters off after, I think it's 4 days, 5 days, I can't remember. But that was a bit scary at first, but they're fine, and they're just healing at the moment. So hopefully they'll look a lot better soon. And I'll insert some pictures throughout of kind of what things looked like at different stages. But yeah, feeling back to myself now, which is great. I've finally got some answers after what, I think 5 years nearly. I went 4 or 5 years. I first went about this chronic pain that I was suffering with, and I think I've suffered with endometriosis my whole life because I've always had super painful periods, and I finally got answers at the age of 27, which is ridiculous, but glad I've got them. And I had a super positive experience. I would recommend if anybody needs something like a laparoscopy, don't shy away from it, don't be scared, don't be worried. Everybody was absolutely amazing. I couldn't thank everybody enough at Basildon Hospital. They were great. Thank you to everybody who came and looked after me, my boyfriend, his mum, and my best friend Lizzie. They literally looked after me the whole time, and I couldn't, well, especially my boyfriend, I couldn't got through the weeks without him because he did everything to help. So I'd say you definitely need somebody around just those few days after. But yeah, I hope that kind of answers some questions for people who might be worried about going in for a laparoscopy, or yeah, don't really know kind of what's going on and might need more investigative kind of procedures. But yeah, mine was super positive, and if you do have any further questions or want to know anything else, then don't be afraid to drop me a message and I am more than happy to answer. But thank you for listening, and yeah, here's to a more positive and onwards and upwards from here.